They say we all carry secrets. Some we whisper to friends. Some we write in journals. And then there are the ones we don't say at all. Not even to ourselves. This is one of those secrets. Not because I want it to be, but because saying it out loud would tear something sacred apart. Something I've spent my whole life pretending was whole. I was the girl who used to write Daddy's Girl on every birthday card. The kind of daughter who looked at her father like he hung the moon. Who ran to him with scraped knees, with stories from school, with dreams of being seen. And he did see me. Oh, God, he saw me. Maybe too much. Maybe in ways a father shouldn't. I don't know when it changed. I don't even know if it was him, or me, or just the silence between us growing too wide. But what I do know is that once a boundary blurs, you can't unsee what was seen, you can't unfeel what was felt. And I wish I could tell you the story is simple. That it's black and white. That there's a villain and a victim. But it's not. It's messy. It's soft in all the wrong places. And it hurts in ways I don't have names for. Because what do you call it when love starts to feel confusing? When comfort feels like closeness, and closeness feels like something you don't know how to carry anymore. I've replayed it 1,000 times in my head. The nights, the touches, the quiet in the kitchen. The way his hand would rest a second too long. The way my body would freeze. Not because I was scared, but because part of me didn't want to move. That's the part that haunts me the most. Not the moment, but the stillness. The way I let it sit. The way I didn't run. You see, people think trauma always looks like screaming. Like slammed doors and loud cries for help. But sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it looks like a birthday dinner, a soft smile, a hug that should have meant safety, but didn't. And maybe I'm not supposed to talk about this. Maybe I'm not supposed to feel this. But I'm tired. Tired of pretending it didn't happen. Tired of wondering if I imagined it. Tired of carrying it alone. So I'm telling it here. Not for pity. Not for drama. But because if there's anyone out there who's ever felt something they couldn't name. If you've ever loved someone who was supposed to protect you, but left you confused instead. Then maybe this isn't just my story. Maybe it's ours. Because what happened between me and my dad? It started in a moment that felt harmless. But it ended in silence that's still echoing through everything I am. And now? Now I live with a truth I can never say out loud. Not to him. Not to my family. Not to anyone who still believes we were just a normal father and daughter. So, if you're here listening, I hope you'll stay. Not to judge. Not to fix it. But just to witness. Because some stories aren't meant to be solved. They're just meant to be told. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where we speak the stories too heavy for silence and too true to forget. I'm 26 now, but when I close my eyes, I can still feel 17. I can still smell the warm spaghetti he used to make every Sunday. I can still hear the echo of his footsteps in the hallway, the soft click of his door when he'd go to bed after turning off all the lights. It was always just me and him, since I was 9. That was the year Mom left. No warning. No goodbye. Just a note on the kitchen counter and a phone number that never worked again. I remember waking up that morning, her coffee mug still on the table. Half full, like her love for us. And after that, it was just quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful, but the kind that settles in your bones and makes you feel like you have to whisper, even when you're alone. Dad never talked about her. Not once. Not even when I asked. He'd just say she had her reasons and then change the subject. But he was always there. He never missed a recital. Never forgot a birthday. He'd braid my hair when I was little badly, but he tried. And when I cried at night, he'd sit at the edge of my bed and hum the same song Mom used to sing. That was the thing about him, he never used a lot of words. But when he looked at me, I felt like the most important person in the world. I think that's what made it all so confusing later on. Back then, people used to tell me, "You're so lucky. Your dad's amazing." And I'd smile. Because they weren't wrong. He was amazing. But no one ever asked what it feels like to be your father's entire world, and also his only shadow. We had routines. Dinner at 7. Dishes together. Late-night TV with the lights off, just the two of us in the glow of the screen. On weekends, we'd go grocery shopping together. He'd push the cart. I'd ride on the edge like a little kid, even though I was 17. We'd laugh about stupid things. Like which cereal box had the best toy inside. It was innocent. Until it wasn't. Until I started noticing the way he'd look at me when I was brushing my hair. Or how he'd go quiet when I wore a tank top in the summer. How his eyes lingered just for a second too long. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I mean, what kind of girl thinks that about her dad? But it wasn't just once. It kept happening. In the kitchen. In the car. In the way his fingers would brush mine when he handed me a plate. And still, I didn't want to believe it. Because he was all I had. And because I needed him to be good. I needed him to be good. It wasn't like he touched me inappropriately. Not really. But there were these small moments. Moments that made my stomach turn and my chest tighten. Moments I never talked about, but never forgot either. There was one night, I was in my pajamas, sitting on the couch beside him. We were watching some old black and white movie, and I leaned into his side like I always did. And he wrapped his arm around me. Like he always did, but that night his hand moved just a little, rested against my waist, then slipped down just an inch too far. And I froze. Not because I was scared, but because something inside me said, "Don't move. Don't make this real." He didn't say anything. Neither did I. We just kept watching the movie. Afterward, he kissed my forehead and said goodnight. Like nothing happened. And maybe nothing did happen. But I couldn't sleep that night. And I couldn't look him in the eye the next morning. And that's when I realized I didn't feel safe anymore. Not from him, but from me. From the thoughts I was starting to have. The questions. The guilt. The longing. I know how that sounds. I hate that it sounds like that. But when love gets tangled in silence, when you've spent your whole life needing one person really needing them, you stop knowing what love is supposed to feel like. And that was the beginning. The beginning of the unraveling. The beginning of the questions I couldn't ask. The moments I couldn't unlive. The closeness I couldn't trust anymore. My friends still said it all the time. You and your dad are so close, it's cute. And I'd smile. But inside, I was screaming. Because they didn't see the way my hands shook when he hugged me. They didn't see the way I avoided sitting too close. They didn't see how I cried in the shower every night, trying to wash something off my skin that I couldn't name. And even now, all these years later, I still wonder. Was I imagining it? Was it my fault? Was it love, or something else entirely? I don't have those answers. But I know what it felt like. And I know that feeling never really goes away. It was winter. One of those nights where the cold doesn't just stay outside. It seeps into your clothes, into your bones, into your chest. The kind of cold that makes you ache for warmth, for something to make the silence feel less sharp. I'd just come back from seeing Josh, my high school boyfriend. Or ex-boyfriend, I guess. We'd been together for almost a year. He was funny, wild, a little reckless, the complete opposite of my dad. And maybe that's why I was drawn to him in the first place. But that night, he ended it. Said I was too much, too emotional, too intense, too needy. Funny, right? All I ever wanted was to be chosen. Held. Seen. And somehow, that always made people run. So I came home, shivering from the outside air and from the hollow space opening inside me. The house was dark except for the lamp in the corner of the living room. Dad was sitting there, waiting, like he always did when I went out. Not in a creepy way, just protective. I dropped my keys and tried to go straight to my room, but he stopped me with one look. Didn't even say anything at first, just opened his arms. And I walked into them. Like I always had, like I always did, but something felt different this time. He held me, longer. His hands didn't move, his voice didn't speak, but his breath was steady against my hair. And when I pulled back just slightly, his hand cupped my cheek. It was soft, reassuring, but also too tender, too slow, too aware. His thumb brushed under my eye, where a tear had started to form, and I froze. Not because I was afraid, but because my body didn't know what to do. My chest was still aching from the breakup. My heart was still raw, and in that moment, being held like that felt good. Too good. There was a silence after. Thick, like fog in the room. Like both of us were pretending not to notice what just happened. Or maybe I was the only one pretending. He let go, stood up, said, "I'll make you some tea." And just like that, we went back to normal. But it wasn't normal. Not anymore. I sat there on the couch, watching him move around the kitchen. The way his shoulders slumped. The way he avoided my eyes when he handed me the mug. The way neither of us said a word about the hug. But I felt it. In my chest. In my stomach. In places I didn't want to feel anything. And that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of Josh. But because I kept thinking about the way my dad had held me. The way his thumb lingered. The way part of me had wanted it. Or maybe not wanted it, but didn't want it to end. That's when the confusion started. That's when I realized love can be dangerous when it comes from someone who was supposed to protect you. I told myself it was just comfort. Just a hug. Just a moment. But not all touches feel the same, even if they come from someone you trust. And the scariest part? I didn't know if he felt it too. Or if I was alone in the storm. I wish I could say that was the last time. That we went back to how things were. But it was only the beginning. The first tiny crack in the wall I thought was unbreakable. And once a crack appears, you start to see everything differently. After that night, something inside me shifted. Not like an earthquake, not all at once. More like a slow, quiet slide, like sand giving way beneath your feet. I still called him Dad. Still said goodnight. Still ate dinner at the table like nothing had changed. But inside me, everything had. I started paying attention to things I never noticed before. Like the way his eyes followed me when I walked past. The way his voice softened when he said my name. The way his compliments landed harder than they used to. I didn't plan it, but I started dressing differently. At first, it was small, less baggy sweatshirts, more fitted tops. I told myself it was because I was growing up. That I just wanted to feel confident. But deep down, I was testing something. Testing him. Testing me. And when he'd say, "You look beautiful today," I'd freeze. Because part of me lit up, and part of me wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I hated that I felt good. Hated that I needed him to say it again. To notice me. To see me. Because every time he did, I felt seen in a way no one else ever had. And that scared the hell out of me. I started putting more effort into dinner. I'd try new recipes, watch YouTube videos, plate the food like I was auditioning for affection. And when he'd take a bite and nod with that warm smile, that proud, quiet approval, I'd feel like I mattered. Like I was enough. But it never lasted. Because once the kitchen was clean and the plates were in the dishwasher, I'd go upstairs and sit in the shower and cry until the water ran cold. I didn't know how to talk about it. Didn't know how to say, "I think I'm confusing love with something else." Didn't know how to ask for help without setting fire to everything. So I prayed. Every night. In whispers. In pieces. In desperation. God, please fix me. Please take this away. I don't want to feel this. I don't want this. Make me normal again. And when no answer came, I started writing. I'd bought a new journal. One I kept hidden beneath my bed. Every page was filled with questions I couldn't say out loud. I think I'm broken. I think I'm sick. But he's the only person who hasn't left. The only one who stays. My friends noticed I was different. Less talkative. More distracted. They'd text, "Wanna hang out?" And I'd say I was busy, even when I wasn't. Because how do you sit at a coffee shop and laugh with your best friend when you're terrified of your own feelings? When your heart races every time your father hugs you goodnight? I started resenting myself, hating my body, second-guessing every move. Was I leading him on? Was I imagining it all? Was it my fault for noticing? For craving something so wrong? I told myself, this is what trauma does. This is just damage. But that didn't make it stop. Didn't make the confusion fade. Didn't make the ache go away. Every compliment became a drug, and I hated how much I needed the next dose. I remember one night, he said, "You're gonna break hearts one day." And he laughed. Just a harmless joke. But I didn't laugh. I couldn't. Because deep down, my own heart was already breaking. Breaking under the weight of wanting the one person I wasn't supposed to want anything from. And the worst part? I still didn't know where the line had been crossed. Because we never talked about it. There were no rules. No names for the feelings. Just silence, and the spaces between us that kept shrinking. I turned 19 that year. College had started, but I still came home every weekend. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Because there was something about the house, about him, that felt safe and dangerous at the same time. When midterms ended, he surprised me. Said he'd booked a weekend cabin out by the lake. Just the two of us. Said it would be a chance to unwind, to catch up like old times. I smiled. Said yes, packed light, and ignored the knot twisting in my stomach. The drive up was quiet. He let me pick the music. Sang along to the songs I thought he'd forgotten. We stopped for gas and snacks, just like we used to when I was little. When we got to the cabin, it was colder than I expected. But cozy. Warm wood paneling. A fireplace. 2 rooms, but he said the heater in mine wasn't working. Said it was fine if I used the couch. I didn't question it. I never did. He lit the fire. Opened a bottle of wine. Just 1 glass each, but I felt it. In my chest. In my cheeks. In the way I laughed too loud. We watched an old movie. Black and white. Romantic, even. We sat side by side on the couch, shoulder to shoulder. Close. And somewhere between the second glass and the part where the couple kisses in the rain, I noticed how quiet the room had become. No music. No talking. Just the sound of the fire and his breathing. And mine. His hand rested on the cushion beside me, just barely touching my leg. Not grabbing. Not moving. Just resting. And I didn't move. I should have. I wanted to. But I didn't. Because in that moment, it felt like a scene. Like we were in the movie. Like the air between us was something else. I felt beautiful. Wanted. Important. And that terrified me. Because I didn't know who I was to him anymore. When the credits rolled, he didn't look at me. Just stood up, yawned, said, "Good night, sweetheart," and went into the bedroom. I lay on the couch, blanket pulled tight, staring at the ceiling for hours. Listening. To the crackle of the fire, to the wind outside, to his breathing in the room next door. And the space between us felt thinner than the walls. I imagined knocking on his door. I imagined what he would say. What I would do. And then I cried. Because I hated myself for imagining it. In the morning, I woke up to a folded note on the coffee table. "Breakfast's on. Didn't want to wake you. Sleep well." I stared at it for a long time. His handwriting. His usual little smiley face at the end. The same one he used to leave in my lunchbox in 3rd grade. And suddenly everything felt blurred. Too close. Too far. Too much. Too little. We ate in silence. Pancakes. Orange juice. The sun shining through the window like it didn't know the night had happened. He asked if I slept okay. I nodded. He smiled. And we didn't speak about the movie. Or the wine. Or the moment. Or the almost. And maybe that's when I knew a line had been crossed. But which one? The one between father and daughter? Or the one between imagination and intent? I didn't know. Still don't. Every daughter wants to be loved. But when love starts to feel like longing, what do you do with that? I didn't stop going home on weekends. Didn't stop cooking dinner. Didn't stop sitting close on the couch. But after that trip, I stopped pretending I didn't notice the space between us. I noticed it every second. And I think, so did he. I turned 20 in April. No party. No big gathering. Just me and him, like always. He said birthdays were sacred, just for the two of us. I believed him. Because somewhere deep down, I wanted that. He made my favorite dinner. Lasagna, garlic bread, a chocolate cake he bought from the same bakery he'd gone to since I was 7. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. He handed me a small, velvet box after dinner. Said, "You're not a little girl anymore." And when I opened it, my breath caught. It was a necklace. Silver. Delicate. Feminine. The kind of piece you give a woman. Not a daughter. A tiny heart with a pearl in the center. Not a joke gift. Not a trinket. But something chosen. Thoughtful. Intimate. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at it, and then looked at him. He smiled. Soft. Quiet. Almost proud. "Let me help you put it on," he said. I turned around. Lifted my hair. Felt his fingers graze the back of my neck. And my whole body went still. The clasp clicked shut. But his hand stayed, resting at the base of my neck, then sliding slowly, gently down the middle of my back. Just a little too far. Just a second too long. And I didn't move. I should have. But I didn't. Because in that moment, I was floating. Trapped between shame and something else. A warmth. A longing. A horror. He stepped around me. Looked me in the eyes. And for a breath, for just one heartbeat, we both stood there in silence. His gaze locked with mine. Not as a father. Not as a protector. But as a man. And I hated it. Hated the way it made my stomach turn. Hated the way my skin tingled under the necklace. Hated the way I didn't look away. Then he blinked. Broke the gaze. Said, "Happy birthday, kiddo," and walked down the hallway. Just like that. And I stood there, frozen. Shaking. My hands curled into fists at my sides. Because nothing happened. But everything changed. I never told anyone. Not even my therapist. Because how do you confess to something that never technically happened, but still feels like betrayal? Betrayal of trust. Of safety. Of boundaries. Of the little girl inside me who used to climb into his lap and believe that love was simple. That moment rewrote everything. It turned the house into a stage I didn't want to be on. Turned every hug into a question mark. Turned silence into suspicion. And worst of all, it made me question myself. Was it me? Was I the one pulling him in? Was I the one confusing affection for attraction? Because I didn't pull away. Because I froze. Because part of me, a part one will never forgive, felt something that should never have been there. After that, I couldn't look at him the same. I couldn't even look at me the same. I still wore the necklace. Not because I liked it, but because I didn't know what it meant if I took it off. Was I sending a message? Was I making it worse? Was I trying to hold on to something broken because I didn't know how to let go? I don't have answers. Only that moment. That touch. That look. And the quiet that followed. We never spoke of it. Not the necklace. Not the hug. Not the look. It was like we both agreed, silently, to erase it from memory. Without ever saying a word. But silence has weight. And ours? It settled between us like fog that never lifted. After that night, he pulled back. Not in big, obvious ways. Just enough. He stopped waiting up for me when I stayed out late. Stopped lingering in the kitchen after dinner. Stopped saying, "I'm proud of you," for no reason. He still smiled. Still asked how school was. Still called me kiddo. But it all felt distant. Diluted. Like he was trying to be careful. Too careful. And me? I stopped going home every weekend. Started making excuses. Group projects. Late shifts. Study sessions that didn't exist. Because every time I walked through that front door, I felt like I had to put on a mask, the good daughter mask. The one who hadn't stood frozen in a moment that wasn't meant to exist. I started therapy that fall. Told them I was dealing with family tension. That I was processing some confusion. But I never told the truth. How could I? How do you explain a wound that didn't bleed? How do you name a trauma that came wrapped in warmth? Every time I tried to speak it, my throat would close up. The words dissolved before they reached my lips. So I talked around it. And left therapy sessions feeling lighter, but never really free. I tried dating again. A guy named Evan. Sweet. Funny. Safe. But the first time he touched the small of my back, I flinched. Hard. He looked confused. Apologized. I laughed it off. Said I was just ticklish. But it wasn't that. It was muscle memory. It was that 1 second too long. That lingering hand. That birthday necklace still in my drawer. Evan eventually stopped texting. Said I was hard to read. That I seemed guarded. And maybe I was. Maybe I still am. I started spending more time online. Scrolling through anonymous forums. Spaces for people who didn't have clear labels for their pain. That's where I found the phrase, gray zone trauma. Not abuse. Not assault. But something else. Something murky. Blurry. The kind of experience you second-guess even while it's happening. I read posts from people who felt what I felt. People who were haunted by the almosts. By the glances. By the silences. By the touches that weren't technically wrong, but still left bruises on their spirit. And for the first time, I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel alone. I started writing. Not under my name. Not with any details. Just feelings. I miss him. I feel sick. I want to take it all back, but I don't know where to begin. I think I broke something that was never mine to hold. Headphone, I loved him. I still do. But I can't trust that love anymore. And I don't know how to live with that. Because what do you do when the person who made you feel the most safe also made you feel the most confused? What do you do when the man who taught you what love looks like also blurred the edges of that love until you couldn't recognize it anymore? There's no manual for this. No step-by-step guide for healing from something that didn't officially happen. Only silence. And shame. And a necklace I still haven't thrown away. I've gone over it in my head more times than I can count. Played it like a film, rewinding, pausing, slowing it down, searching for the frame where it all began to bend. Did I lead him on? Was it something I did? Was it the way I leaned in when I laughed? The way I dressed around the house? The way I craved his attention like it was oxygen? Or was I just a daughter trying to feel loved in a house where love was all I ever reached for? Sometimes I wonder if my trauma painted over reality. If my loneliness made me see things that weren't there. If I filled in the blanks of our relationship with the broken pieces of my own need. But then I remember how my stomach twisted. How my chest tightened. How my skin burned under his fingertips, not in pain, but in confusion. And I remind myself, the body knows. Even when the mind lies. Even when the memory gets cloudy. Even when the story doesn't have the kind of ending that makes sense on paper. My body never forgot. Not the couch. Not the cabin. Not the necklace. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you don't have to be touched to be wounded. You don't have to be screamed at to feel unsafe. Sometimes the deepest scars come from things that never even broke the surface. Still, I ask myself, did he mean to? Did he know? Did he feel it too? Or was it all me? Was he just being a dad and I was the one who twisted it? That thought lives with me. It visits late at night. It tugs at my heart and whispers, maybe you ruined something that was never broken. But then I think about his eyes. That birthday. That moment. The way he looked at me, not as a father. Not as a protector. But as something else. Something I can't unsee. And I realize. Even if it was subtle, even if it was unspoken, he felt it too. He must have. Because we both went silent. And silence is never neutral. It's heavy. It's loaded. It says everything you're too scared to say out loud. I don't know what forgiveness looks like. Not for him. Not for me. Is it pretending it never happened? Is it learning to love again without fear? Is it finally telling someone the full truth without watering it down or hiding behind careful words? Or maybe forgiveness is just choosing not to carry the guilt anymore, even if I don't know where it belongs. Sometimes I wonder if my silence was protection. If I stayed quiet to keep the peace, to keep our relationship intact, to keep my memory of him from collapsing completely. But other times, it feels like surrender. Like I laid down my voice and let the story write itself without me. And now I'm here, sitting in the aftermath, holding questions that will never have answers. All I know is, I loved him. I needed him. And somewhere along the way, that love got tangled in something I was never meant to carry. And I'm still trying to untangle it. Have you ever held on to something, not because it was true, but because letting go would leave you with nothing? Have you ever protected a memory because rewriting it meant losing someone you still loved, even if they hurt you? That's where I've lived. Between truth and survival. Between memory and silence. And sometimes, I wonder if I was wrong for feeling what I felt. For freezing in moments when I should have run. For craving comfort in places I shouldn't have found it. But tell me this, was I wrong for feeling something I never chose to feel? Or was I just a girl longing to be loved? Not touched, not taken, just seen, just held, just kept. Tell me your truths in the comments. Not the filtered version. Not the one you've rehearsed. The real one. I read every single one, no judgment, just honesty. Because if you've ever felt confused by someone you were supposed to trust, if you've ever carried a secret so quietly it started sounding like your own name, you are not alone. Like this story? Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where silence turns into stories too heavy to carry alone. Tap the bell, because the next story? It might echo something you've never dared to say out loud. Not all wounds bleed. Some live in the way we flinch at kindness. The way we pull back from safe hands. Because we once mistook danger for love. Some betrayals don't begin in bedrooms. They begin in living rooms. At birthday dinners. On road trips. In hugs that last a little too long, and glances that speak a little too loud. They begin in familiar arms that once rocked you to sleep, and suddenly feel like a place you can't return to. And some secrets? We don't keep them because we want to. We keep them because we believe, if we speak them out loud, they'll destroy everything we still love. But silence doesn't protect us. It just locks the pain in deeper. So, if you're carrying something heavy, a memory, a moment, a question you can't answer, know this. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. You were never meant to. If this story moved you, if it cracked open something you've kept buried, I see you. Let's break the silence. Together. You've just listened to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where the quietest confessions speak the loudest truths.